They're small.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 22nd, Maplewood City Council meeting. Council members, I wanted to share with you something that we worked on back in July. Now, July wasn't that long ago. It may seem like that with our weather, but this last week I was out at St. John's Hospital to help cut the ribbon at their short stay observation unit. We approved back in July 16 beds with a specialized unit that St. John's was adding to the hospital for those people that need observation and are not necessarily sick enough that they need to be admitted to the hospital, but it will certainly help with people that are lingering in emergency rooms and they don't have really any place to put them. So I am happy to tell you that the unit is now open in a very short period of time, and the reason being that the building itself is a modular building. It looks fabulous from the inside and actually from the outside too, but it was actually manufactured in Wisconsin and then brought to this location in Maplewood and then put together here in Maplewood. And I believe that they were going to get their certificate of occupancy really, did they get it, Ms. Parr?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, they got their temporary occupancy, and we expect that when they finish up a few other things, they'll have their permanent one shortly thereafter.
Okay, so people are going to be able to start using that, and that will provide 16 extra beds. I also had an opportunity to talk with the Vice President of Operations out at St. John's, Danielle Gacci, and she shared with me that they are hoping that they will be able to break ground on the expansion sometime before the end of this year, and that they are putting their financing together right now. They're going to certainly be doing it in phases because that'll make it more economically feasible, but they are pretty anxious to get started on it. So we're going to see some other new things happening at St. John's, hopefully during this year of 2024. So that's really kind of a fun thing to hear, especially after learning at our workshop about the new Monktown purchase of the old Sears building at the Maplewood Mall. So that really is pretty cool. Okay, well then let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance and we'll get on to our business. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk Sint, would you please do our roll call?
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Here.
Councilmember Cave.
Here.
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Mayor Abrams.
I'm here as well, thank you. Council members, would someone like to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Lee, the motion to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Council members, I am going to suggest that we pull G8, which is the employment agreement between the City of Maplewood and City Manager Mike Sable. We aren't quite done with the agreement, and so we're working on that diligently, and we should have it ready for the council at our next meeting. So let's pull G8. Councilmember Lee, you have something else?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if we can also pull G9 for just a quick discussion.
Okay. So we'll highlight that. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on our agenda, we've got the January 8th City Council Workshop meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the City Council Workshop meeting minutes for January 8th. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye as well.
Yep. Abstain, Mayor.
Councilmember Lee would abstain, thank you. The motion passes. Moving on, January 8th, our City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the January 8th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Thank you. Moving on to appointments and presentations, our calendar. City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the City Council. The council calendar, looking at upcoming work sessions, I don't have anything scheduled, but that will be determined as I meet with the department heads this week and next week. So there'll be some updates there. One of the things that was brought up at our last meeting was to Councilmember Villavicencio asked if we could provide the background and history of why the Multicultural Advisory Committee is a committee as opposed to a commission. And I provided all of you some history of that, as well as minutes from the meetings that took place over a couple of years. And if you read the material, it became I won't say an issue, but a preference for the people that were working on this to not have it be a public work environment, because if we have a commission, then the meetings are televised and people can come in and comment. And they really felt that that lost some of the ability to be candid and truthful in some of these tough subjects they were talking about. And just to remind you, this all started with the use of force task group after Philando Castile was murdered or shot. So the whole history has been presented to you. I put that in the FYI. I guess for Councilmember Villavicencio, I would ask you if this addressed your concerns.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. And I know, Councilmember Lee, I think you're still on that group, right? And
I am still on that.
maybe you could provide a little background on how that's
Sure.
working.
I've been on the MAC since 2020, I believe it is, so it's been a little while. We had a conversation with the chief, and we talked a little bit more about, just ways of how we can bring in new people. And I think the biggest part of it was, for me, was, how do we create value for the members who are on there? And so I think a lot of those conversations can be had at the MAC. And, the MAC has great conversations, and I think the open dialogue is a big piece of it, is being able to be candid about the issues that are happening in our community. So there's definitely additional things that we can talk a little bit more about, how we can add more context to the meetings and how to make it more meaningful for as a member, if I wasn't on the council, how do we make those meetings meaningful for me? So those are more conversations. I mean, there's so many different pieces that can be added into it, but I think having it being open dialogue, I think that's an important component of it, so.
Okay. If there aren't any questions, that's my
Thank you.
report.
One other thing that I do remember when Chief Nadeau helped establish the MAC, and it was based on a pattern that the MAC that he had in Columbia Heights. And one thing about a committee is that the membership can be very nimble, that when people join the MAC and then if they have to leave, if this is a formal commission, then we need to have council approval for all of that. And it doesn't have the same kind of nimble membership that can happen if there's a committee. And it was the chief's preference that it be a committee, so that then different groups could become part of the MAC, and it was much more flexible. So that was one of the things that I remember about it as well. Councilmember Lee.
Something that I have thought about, though, is the name MAC, though. I think the Multicultural Advisory Committee, this is a committee that works very, in particular with the police department alone. So, I've thought a lot about how if the MAC is a true reflection of what that committee does, though. So maybe that's something we can maybe talk about as a council, if that's something that is reflective of it. Because I think there's been times where, I've seen, us refer to the MAC as a diversity group, but this group doesn't talk about policies or anything at all within the city itself, but within policies within the police department. So I think that's something we have to evaluate and we have to take into consideration when we're talking about diversity in our city, that this particular committee does not represent diversity in other policy-making processes in our city.
Maybe that's something that you would like to bring up at the MAC, since you attend meetings with it.
Sure.
And look at it, see what their input is in terms of any suggestions. That would be appreciative.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one question?
City Manager Coleman.
I would just conclude by asking if there are any other issues or concerns that you would like staff to review on your behalf.
Councilmember Cave.
No concerns, but I know we have a retirement party coming up in February, and that's not put on here.
Oh, we can do that.
Okay. Because I think, that needs to,
Typically, what we would do is we would post it as a possible quorum. So I don't know that we need to put it on the calendar, but we do
Okay.
need to post it as a
Okay.
possible quorum of the
Okay.
council. Thank you.
Thank you. There were no council presentations tonight. So moving on to the agenda, or excuse me, the consent agenda, Councilmember Lee asked to highlight G9. Pardon me?
I'll address it after.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Lee, is there any particular questions that you had?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for bringing this up, and, I think it's great that we're revisiting our pay schedule on a yearly basis to make sure that we're being competitive in the market. So thanks to this staff and team for doing that. I think as this came across me last year, and as I looked at the pay schedule, and something that I noticed on here is that we still, there's a couple items on here that are at $12 and $13 and $14, and we moved a couple of the $14.50 to $15. But in just really looking at kind of where the state's going and where we are going as a country, I was wanting to bring up to see if, as a council, we may not hire a lot of these positions very often, office specialist, receptionist, and recreational worker at $12 to $13. That's probably not a common hire. But I was interested to see if we could have a discussion about maybe making a minimum all across the board for temporary seasonal part-time worker at $15 an hour to kind of follow that trend of $15 minimum. I don't know if that's something that the council would be interested in doing or not. And Melinda, we chatted a little bit just before the council meeting too. So I kind of take some other council members.
City Manager Coleman, do you want to reply to that?
Yeah, I'll speak about this generally, and then if there's further conversation, that's great. So one of the things I would point out is that this resolution is done every year, and it's just for our temporary and seasonal employees. It's not our full-time employees that we have. And to remind all of you that we did a pay study for our full-time and people who work all year round. This scale is prepared by Terry Ramo in the HR department, and what she does is she looks at the league website to look at what other cities are paying to see if we're in the right market. Some of the jobs are starting at higher than $15 an hour. I think that basically the differences in these are just to remember that it's part-time. They're just here they're filling in, or they're just here for the summer to help out. The pay rates are based on experience and skills. So I don't know if it makes sense to put everybody at 15 to start or not. I think we need to talk about that. But I do think that one of the things we could do to address this, or at least start a conversation, would be to have Mr. Darrow and his team look at different pay studies that have been done around the area, and also have the finance director look at if there'd be any budget implications with this plan. So I have some mixed feelings about it, but it also could help with recruitment. So, it's kind of, it goes one way or the other there. So that's what I would add to the conversation, but I think if we just ask Mr. Darrow and his team maybe to provide a little context for how other cities do this, and then have Finance Director Rube look at any budget implications there may be.
I would prefer we need to know if there are budget implications, because we can't change things when we've set the levy and set our budget for next year. Because if we were to raise something or change it, then that means that we have to take away something else someplace else. Council members, is that something, Councilmember Cave, do you want to weigh in on this?
yes, I would agree with the budget, to look at that. I also agree looking at it, though. I mean, we have election judges starting at 15, and I think the recruitment is a big thing to look at, because when kids are coming home from summer and they're looking for a job, Target's 15, everyone's, so I think it is something to definitely look at, because if we're going to have good employees and people that stay, and also talking to Ms. Rameau about, do we have a problem hiring? And if we do, that is something that reflects on, when people try to bring their kids to the city for, soccer, and you don't have a coach. Those things are, I think that's definitely worth looking at.
So council members, do you want to weigh in? It sounds to me then that we need to remove this from the agenda in order to get additional information, because we can't vote on it tonight. So from a procedural perspective, I'd like to hear Councilmember Villavicencio, what are your thoughts on this? Removing it and learning more?
Yes, I think we should
Okay.
remove it.
And Councilmember Juniman?
Fine.
Okay. Then in terms, Mr. Beatty, should we do a friendly amendment? Would that be your suggestion? Okay, would someone like to make that friendly amendment?
Just a minute, do we need to do that for 8 as well?
I'm sorry, what?
Do we have to do that for 8 as well?
Right,
We haven't made a motion yet,
I know, that's why.
so we could do it in the motion rather
Yeah.
than friendly.
yeah.
So I would
So-
motion consent agenda items number 1 through 7 and 10 and 11.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman, consent agenda items G1 through 7 and 10 through 11. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And that passes. We have no public hearings tonight, no unfinished business. We have an item of new business. It's kind of hard to believe, but we are already talking about street projects for next, or for this year.
Yep,
Yeah. And it's only January.
it's only January.
Mr.
Yes,
Love, I'll turn it over to you.
yes, Mayor and Council, it looks like we have our presentation pulled up. So tonight, we are talking about the council receiving the feasibility report for the 2024 street improvement project. One of the things that's a little bit different this year, as you can see on the maps off to the right there, we have two areas. We have a Cypress Maplewood Drive area, which is along Highway 61, lying north and south of County Road C. And then we also have the East Shore Drive area. In past years, we've been running two projects a year, managing them as two separate entities. What we were finding was, originally that was being done because we would do one project that was strictly a reclaim project and one project that was a full reconstruction project. And the last couple of years, we've actually had projects where it was both on one project, and we found that that actually didn't have any negative effects as far as like bidding it out and getting good prices. So this year, we're combining both of them, and there's a couple things for that. Part of it is staff efficiency. When we look at things like working with our partners at St. Paul Regional Water and the improvements that are going on, we're working with them on one project versus two. Same thing with the watershed district. But also the economy of scale. So by combining these together, we have had some feedback from some contractors that this might bring in some more contractors that could lead to better pricing, maybe some bigger contractors. And lastly, to kind of help ensure that we're meeting our statute requirements for our assessment amounts. So when we talk about this project as a whole, there's about 4.3 miles of streets. The average pavement condition index rating is 32 out of 100, where 100 is a brand-new road. So the pavement in these roads have deteriorated quite a bit. They're past the point where regular pothole patching is going to really hold the streets together. In some areas, the roads haven't been brought up to modern standards with concrete curb and gutter and storm sewer improvements. There are also some minor utility improvements that are needed in the area, such as sewer manhole castings and rings being replaced. St. Paul Regional Water has identified 2,600 feet of old cast iron water main pipe that they are going to need to replace. And along with that, and you'll see this later on in the slide, they've also asked for the addition of anodes to be attached to the ductile iron pipe that's out there, and that is being done in areas where you have corrosive soil. So the anode actually is what corrodes, and it saves the corrosion off of the pipes themselves. So it lengthens the life of the existing infrastructure out there. On this map, you see two colors. The green streets are the ones that are going to be reclaimed, and the red ones, we call them full reconstruction. That also includes partial reconstruction. So when we talk about reclaimed streets, what we're really talking about is like this image here off to the right. That's a reclaim machine. It's grinding up the existing asphalt. It mixes it in with the aggregate base, and it creates a new base for the road. We've had a lot of good results with these type of projects. So the main focus on these projects is really the pavement condition. We do spot repair structurally deficient curb. We also do minor improvements to the utilities. And of course, we also, at the very end, restore the driveways in the boulevard areas. For our full reconstruction projects, these are a lot more, I'd say, invasive or more intense. We will be utilizing our Living Streets policy as we go through the design process. I will say that the East Shore area it is a more unique and challenging neighborhood. There's a lot of elevation, very narrow roads already. You have lots of retaining walls and trees that are very close to the roadway. So it's going to be a challenge, but we'll be able to do it. It's just kind of a unique neighborhood compared to some of the ones we've done in the past. So we will be doing a full road section replacement that includes the pavement, the aggregate base, and any bad soils underneath that, along with bringing the roads up to current standards with concrete curb and gutter, expanded storm sewer system, water quality features. East Shore neighborhood is right next to the lake there, so we want to make sure we include that as well. And as I mentioned, we have the water main work being asked to be done by St. Paul Regional Water. So for resident communication, back in November, we sent out an informational packet. This included a lot of information about the projects, assessment information. I was just going to look at my notes here to give you kind of size of the two neighborhoods. The East Shore Drive area had about 147 properties, and the Cypress Maplewood Drive portion has another 141 properties. We held our first meeting, neighborhood meeting in December. It was a question, we provided a presentation and as well as a question and answer session. A lot of the feedback was on speeding, what's it going to cost, kind of the typical questions that we get on these projects. In December, we sent out another mailing letting residents know that we have a tool that we're using to get feedback on. It's called Input ID. It kind of, there's a map, and it allows you to kind of have some social interaction of being able to provide a comment, and then staff actually being able to comment back, and people be able to vote, yes, I like this comment, no, I don't. That went live in December. We will be holding our second neighborhood meeting prior to the public hearing in February, and that'll be bringing the residents up to speed on the design of the project and being able to answer any questions that they have prior to the public hearing. So overall, the project is estimated at $10,878,200. Below is the funding plan. There's a couple things I would like to point out. St. Paul Regional Water, the $1 million there that you see, that would be reimbursed by St. Paul Water to us for that water main work that they're requesting. We are also partnering with Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. So prior to the feasibility study, they were looking at different flood mitigation projects in the area. And we realized that there was a good chance for us to sync up our two projects and kind of collaborate together. The $125,000 is just a placeholder for now. Any of the flood remediation work done as part of this project, Ramsey Washington would be reimbursing the city for. So really quickly, just a couple quick reminders on special assessments. Special assessments are a funding tool that helps finance a portion of our public improvement projects. Each year, the council sets a maximum rate. We do hire an independent appraisal firm to determine the benefit to the property. The reason why we do that is because per the Minnesota state statutes, we cannot assess for the amount, more than the amount that the property directly benefits. The assessment hearing would take place in September. Prior to that meeting, there would be a large informational packet that would go out that would include information about the assessments, payment options, deferral options, and right to object. We would also be holding a neighborhood meeting prior to the assessment hearing, strictly on assessments to answer questions and make sure residents understand that portion. So looking at a tentative schedule, tonight the council is receiving the feasibility report. We would host a neighborhood meeting the week of February 5th prior to the public hearing, which would be set for February 12th. If a contract would be coming before council for approval in April, we would host a third neighborhood meeting in May. That would be a pre-construction meeting to be able to answer questions residents have about the upcoming project. Construction would likely take place between June and November. It's not shown on here, but there would be a fourth neighborhood meeting before that assessment hearing, and then the assessment hearing in September. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the resolution accepting the feasibility study, authorizing preparation of plans and specifications, and call for a public hearing for the 2024 Maplewood Street Improvement Project, City Project 2308, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Councilmember Juniman has a question.
I have two, I suppose, silly questions, but I still want the answer. On the East Shore Drive area, that one little piece that's sitting down there on, off of Clarence and Price, how did that get that
Mayor and
way?
council, so the neighborhood around that had previously got improvements, and it's my understanding back then, those streets were opted out based on resident feedback. So this is our opportunity to try to pick them up and kind of bring them up to where they need to be.
It's kind of a little case of be careful what you wish for. And then I have a question. In the attempt to educate myself, what is a sacrificial anode?
Yes, so Mayor and Council, that's what I was trying to describe a little bit earlier. So the water company is going to, we dig down to the water main, and we essentially add this anode, and what it does is in corrosive soil, the anode itself corrodes instead of the ductile iron pipe. So by doing so, you're extending the life of the infrastructure that's out there, and we certainly want to try to do that versus having that water main fail underneath a new roadway.
Thank you. I never heard of it before, so I thought I'd find out what it was.
Yep.
Thank you.
We all learned something new tonight. Councilmember Cave.
Just a comment on the map that we're on the top one. You mentioned that there was a little, the little T on the bottom one, upside down T is from people who opted out. What about the area north of C on Coleman, Clarence, Fitch, that we've had lots of comments on that the roads were really bad?
Yes, Mayor and Council, so I believe you're talking
Yes.
about kind of that area
Yes.
up there?
Yep.
Yep, that was a project back in 2008. We proposed a project there. Ultimately, with the feedback from the residents, that project was not moved forward past the feasibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's in our 5-year CIP, that it will be coming back. We've been doing a lot to try to hold the roads together, but
Yeah.
that is one that ultimately the project was switched to another neighborhood.
Yeah. I just didn't know, since we're up there, if that makes a difference, or it really doesn't, once you cut,
Yeah, Mayor and Council, part of it is, I know staff has asked me some questions about that too. Part of it is at a certain point, the funding becomes a
Okay.
play into how much
Okay.
of an area you can do. And so the frontage road was something that wasn't part of the County Road C project, but we thought this would be the time to pick it up now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think it's a new.
Any other questions, council
A
members?
new adage. Be careful what you don't want.
Kicking the
I'm-
can down the road doesn't always
No.
help. It rarely helps. Council members, we have a motion then. Would someone like to make it?
I move approval of the resolution accepting the feasibility study, authorizing preparation of plans and specifications, and call for a public hearing for the 2024 Maplewood Street Improvements City Project 23-08.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Villavicencio. The motion to approve a resolution accepting the feasibility report, authorizing the preparation of plans and specifications, and calling for a public hearing for the 2024 Maplewood Street Improvement City Project 23-08. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries, and we have our summer road construction all figured out, and it's still January. Isn't that exciting? Council members, we have no other items on our agenda, and so therefore, we are adjourned.